The World Cup 2018 is on its way. It's 2017, but we are here.
Sam, doing?
See that?
Yeah.
George Knott, up for this?
Kristan?
Sam? Hey? Yeah? You feeling it, Kristan?
I'm feeling it half as much as you are.
I know. Well, we thought they were going to be waffling on for ages and ages, but they have gone straight into it now. So we're going to have to react to this as we go. This is the World Cup draw live stream, and they've kicked off already. Russia are in Group A. This is a...
That's the big one. That's the big one out of the way straight away.
That's true. So the first, just to explain the rules of the whole World Cup draw, you've got your 8 pots. The top 8 ranked teams are in, obviously, the first set of pots. Then after that, you've got England, who are in the second pot, along with Spain, who are in there as well. Then after that, it goes down basically in increments of where they've ranked in the qualifiers and in the FIFA rankings. But we're now kicking off with the draw already.
It's dramatic because Portugal are in Group B on their own with nobody.
So although we had a little panic there to start with, this bit is ultimately, is it important or is it not important? Because I guess the one thing with Russia is the fact, Kristan, that they're going to have to be going all over the world here, aren't they? So more than most World Cups, what group you're in obviously dictates where you're playing, and a lot of these teams have already sorted out their venue for where they're going to be training and everything. So it is actually kind of important, the first part of it.
I'd say logistically it's a bit of a nightmare compared to other tournaments, definitely, because of the travel, the time difference, I would say even some of the infrastructure that you're going to find in some of these places. It does make it very difficult for the teams, and I think that's perhaps something that in a bizarre way almost keeps it a level playing field, is that everyone's in the same mess. No one really has an advantage going into the actual tournament itself.
Yeah. And the other thing is that there's the time zones as well in Russia, which is a huge deal. You don't want to be travelling. I think for any game, the least you're going to be travelling is around something like 7,000 miles. If you're going from one venue to another venue, so it's going to be
interesting to think whether you've got the European teams that are used to travelling maybe maximum of 2 hours travel during qualifiers. When you look at teams maybe like Australia or a team like Japan during the qualifiers, where those guys are actually used to travelling big distances, that could actually help them during the course of the World Cup. And
before it really gets into it, let's have a look. I've looked at a couple of nightmare scenarios and dream scenarios. So let's have a look at, let's start positive. The dream scenario.
That's very unlike you, James.
For England, because England obviously going to win this World Cup. Everyone knows that. There's 2 dream draws that generally the press have kind of gone to. One from the FIFA rankings, who's kind of saying who are the least decent teams that they could play, which is Russia, England, obviously in that group, Iran and Saudi Arabia. Russia are actually the lowest ranked team in the entire competition, despite being the host nation and being in the first pot. Who's that?
Brazil, Group E, Argentina, Group D, France, Group C.
Well, we'll get onto the nightmare draw in a second. So Group E is one to keep an eye on it for England fans. But I think the thing with Russia is, however low they are, you don't want to play the host country, do you?
No, you don't want to play the host country. You don't want to play the host country, but looking at who else is in pot 1, maybe you do want to play the host country, to be honest.
I'll take that back.
They're not of the quality of the other teams. I mean, it's been a bit of time since the Euros, but I went to see them a couple of times during the Euros, and they just looked like they were one of the worst international teams at that time. I've never seen. They didn't seem to have a system going. So, yeah, there's the home advantage, but compared to some of those other sides.
And they had a good tournament in 2008, Kristan, but kind of since then, it's just... They've got the same players, haven't they? That's probably the problem as much as anything.
As I tell myself a lot lately, 2008 was a long time ago. And I think you look at even just the situation with Capello. They paid him so much money, and it was a disaster of a situation to where Slutsky has to come in, says, look, I'll do it for free just to get us through this situation. And I just don't think the next generations come through. You look at, the centre-backs in particular stick out to me as being a real big issue. When someone like Neustadt is coming in as a younger option, that to me says that you've got an ageing defence, and I think if you look at tournament football at its best, it's never going to be a good sign.
And what I would always say with these things, when you start to look at all the guides for all the teams, it'll say the star men, and if the star man is a goalkeeper, that's not good. And Akinfeev, 31, played for CSKA Moscow. He's their guy. So that, for me, is dangerous. So we would like that.
Lev Yashin was Russian, wasn't he? And he's one of the poster boys for the World Cup. He's known as a spider. I think that was his nickname?
I think, yeah, that and the octopus or something like that, yeah.
So, anyway, he's a very good goalkeeper. I remember that. And he's one of the poster boys for the draw. So, Russia, maybe they will get behind Akinfeev. He is a great goalkeeper.
Maybe. So. The other one there, so if you're looking at trying to avoid the hosts in Russia, then it's Poland, who a bit of a surprise for a lot of people to see them in the top 8 seeds, I think. And then, of course, us, Iran, again, they're the lowest ranked team in pot 3. And then Panama, who are obviously taking part in their first ever World Cup. Just to say, get your comments in. Tell us what group you want, what teams you want to avoid. Tell us why you want to avoid them. If you've got any questions for Kristan.
Pot 2 is starting. Ooh.
Pot 2 is starting, so here we go. Or our football analyst, George, here. Or I'm looking for a nickname for George. George Knott. I'm thinking Knotty, something along those lines. So
very creative. Very creative.
But if you can think of something better than that, be nice, then let us know. Right, so we move on to the second round of the team. So Uruguay have been drawn. Go on, Sam.
First out, Uruguay. Now we get a nice tense 30 seconds where I've got to fill it with just filler because I'm waiting for the ball to be drawn by, I think, Gordon Banks.
Well, Uruguay are going to be a really tough team. I mean, they were very good in qualifying. They came second behind Brazil in South American
Obviously,
qualifying.
England got bad memories of Uruguay as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, they had like the top scorer in South American qualifying with Cavani.
He's got Cavani and Suarez.
Suarez, yeah, and also Carlos Sanchez as well, who plays his club football in Argentina. But he was the second highest assist maker in South American qualifying with 7. They're not really a team to underestimate by any stretch.
Well, Uruguay in pot A with Russia.
So that's part of our dream draws. One of them has pretty much has gone there, unfortunately. 2 to look out for, I think, Group E and Group F. Let's have a quick look.
Got Spain have been
who again, that's one of the positives of this entire draw is we can't get Spain. They're in pot 2 alongside us.
So I think they're drawing this in order. So Spain have been drawn second. So Spain are in pot B. Are in B with Portugal now.
Do you think? Well, I guess it's about to show.
That's how it's gone so far.
Let's look at the nightmare draws very quickly as they're coming out. If you look at rankings, it's Germany, Costa Rica, and Nigeria are the nightmare draw for England. But what happens if we avoid? If we get Germany, that means
in pot B, Portugal and Spain.
Portugal and Spain in the same group.
Yeah,
tough one.
That's good.
That's very tough. If we get Brazil, then that means the problem with getting Brazil is it means we can get a second European team. Because the way the draw works is you can't have more than 2 European sides in a group. Talk us through, Sam. Diego Maradona's Dicky Bow. What is that?
We were having a full conversation about his suit when he came on. Lionel Messi is quite famous for Larry suits at Ballon d'Or events, and I mean, Christian called him Penguin. I mean, he's full black and a yellow Dicky Bow. I'm not sure why. I have no idea why.
I'm trying to
justify that.
Yeah, true.
I can't. So France are in with Peru. So yeah, they're drawing it in order.
Okay.
So if England are drawn now, we got Argentina.
So if again we look at those 2 nightmare draws, we don't want Germany, we don't want Brazil. They are on the way.
We've got a 3 out of 5 chance of getting a draw that we don't want here, which is 60%. Just to let you know.
Worth noting as well, not a single Peruvian player was born the last time they were in the World Cup.
Written 36 years ago, wasn't it?
Croatia.
And Gareca, their coach, was actually playing for Boca Juniors at the time. As a striker, that's how long ago it was.
That's incredible. So right, here we go. It's going to be, we're either going to be with Brazil, Germany, Belgium, who I didn't really want either.
Poland.
Or Poland. Poland is the dream. This is going to be excruciating if we are to get the dream draw of Poland.
You know, there's an interesting stat about the Peru manager as well, is that I think he knocked Peru out when he was with Argentina from the last time they were in the World Cup.
Yes, he did.
And he's now going back full circle, which is kind of cool.
So Mexico, who Mexico got?
I don't know. Has Mexico just been drawn?
Switzerland have been drawn with Brazil.
Switzerland drawn with Brazil. Right, so we're not going to get Germany, are we?
Oh, we could get Germany.
Please don't get Germany. Please don't get Germany.
Seeing what's there now, would you have taken Portugal's group if it was offered to you?
I would have taken not Germany's group. Switzerland.
So Switzerland with Brazil. So we've got Germany, Belgium or Poland. I think for some reason the BBC Three is quite far away.
Genuinely. I just want a good group, right? And the lack of optimism with England fans, we need a decent group just to get us out of there, just so we can start to have a bit of
optimism. What, you mean like Algeria and USA?
Need it.
Yeah, that was...
Don't worry. What about Belgium? Thoughts on Belgium? They're probably... one of the scariest teams.
They're really
right?
tough. I mean, they absolutely smashed it in qualifying.
But the manager's Roberto Martinez. It's not.
The manager's Roberto Martinez.
Yeah,
FA Cup winner Roberto Martinez.
Highest scorers in qualifying, 43 goals. Lukaku scored more headers than anyone else with 4 goals.
What a player!
That could be a bit of a problem for England.
I think you have to look at the game they played against Mexico, where De Bruyne came after and said tactically, like, they outthought us.
There we go. We avoided
a very damning indictment.
We've been drawn. England have been drawn in the same group as Belgium.
There we go.
Initial thoughts, Kristan? I'm devastated.
Personally, I think Belgium are so either end of the spectrum for me. You spot on what you say. They scored 43 goals. That is amazing. But at the same time, to go from Mark Wilmots to Roberto Martinez, it just seems along a similar path for me, and I don't.
Yeah, you're not buying it.
I think you do have to factor in their qualifying group a little bit. I mean, they had Gibraltar. Thomas Meunier, their right back, scored a hat-trick against Gibraltar. That kind of says you can get 43 goals. Estonia, Greece, there are the other teams in there. It's not.
But the bottom line is that squad.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, of course, 100%.
They've got the most strength in depth. Like their starting 11's incredible, but they've got strength in pretty much every single position.
Yeah. You could pretty much name a second 11 for them and it would still make the World
probably
Cup
better
on its
than
own.
England's.
So first up, let us know, England have been put in group, G with Belgium. Get commenting now, let us know your thoughts. Are you bothered about that? Is that the worst we could have got? I think in the nightmare draw scenarios that I put forward, didn't put Belgium in there. So, and you're right, maybe you're right, Kristan.
Positive, right?
Positive!
Come on.
By the way, I just want to say
keep clutching to that Mexico game and De Bruyne saying we were tactically outthought. Just keep clutching to that.
I just want to say how much I'm enjoying Puyol being in a suit because he's got such a lot of hair.
He's not giving up on that hair, is he?
No, he hasn't at all, which is, fair play to him.
So we move on to pot 3. If we can have a look at all of the teams, we've got hopefully a graphic for that. In pot 3, this is where it's very interesting because I think there's a lot of teams there that are, you just go, they're decent. George, you've done a lot of analysis on African sides.
Yeah.
A few here in pot 3. The fact that England are now in a group with another European team means that we can't get Denmark, which I think is a great thing. I'm a bit gutted. I kind of wanted Iceland. We can't get Iceland.
I'm sure you did.
So what I'm delighted about, we can't get Sweden, who have been our bogey team over the years. But it means that there's a few African sides in there. Just talk us through some of those.
There's some really interesting African teams now. I mean, one for me is Senegal. They kind of underperformed a bit at AFCON back in the start of the year, but you look at their squad and they've got Sadio Mane, Keita Baldé-Diop, who's playing at Monaco now, Cheku Kouyaté, Idrissa Gana Gueye, so many familiar names.
Yeah.
In a way, maybe if England do draw them, that'll kind of help because it's players they're used to playing in the Premier League, whereas someone like Egypt have a lot of domestic-based players playing for teams like Zamalek. Obviously, they've got Mohamed Salah. He was the top scorer in Africa qualifying. In the final round, anyway, he got 5 goals. But they've got a lot of players who maybe won't be so familiar to the general football watching public, but they're a really, really kind of tough outfit.
I think what's slightly scary...
Egypt's gone, by the way.
Egypt's gone, right.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, it's moving so fast. Who knew? Well done to FIFA. The best time. We thought we're going to have to talk here for a long, long time, but they are straight into it. So much so that Egypt are already in...
So that leaves Costa Rica, Tunisia, Senegal and Iran are the 4 teams that we can draw from this pot so far. Right,
so Iran we had as a kind of the dream. We wanted Iran. They're 34th in the FIFA World Rankings, which is the lowest team in pot 3. Costa Rica, obviously it didn't go too well with them in 2014. Would you expect them to pull up any trees this time around?
I mean, I thought they did quite well. I mean, to get to Holland, be outthought by Louis van Gaal with that mad substitution, which again worked. To be fair to him, it's not as mad if it works. They've changed as a national team. I think they're not as. I don't think they're as much as an attacking threat. One of the things that's really killed them for me is Joel Campbell's situation. The fact he's not had continuity since, and they are still kind of relying on Brian Ruiz to make things tick for them in the final third. I know what you said before about if your goalkeeper's a star player, you should be worried. Keylor Navas is a huge player for them. Adored in the country, is still a big contributor. And some of their defenders, I think, have something to offer. Expect them to have similarities to 2014, I would say, in terms of it'll be fullbacks or wingbacks, that will be bombing forward, supplementing the attack, and they'll be dogged. So anyone that does draw them, expect as much of a fight, not in terms of aggression or cards or anything, but expect a battle on the field if nothing else.
And I guess the bottom line for them, the problem for them is it's good to be an unknown quantity. No one expected them to do anything at all when it came to 2014, which was the group of death on that occasion.
Iran have gone as well, by the way.
Iran have gone as well, for God's sake.
I mean, Iran have been drawn with Portugal.
Centre backs, Jose Fon, Bruno Alves.
Just won the Euro 2016.
But exactly, and that's the thing. You've got to think almost 8 months ahead. You've got to think they're going to be 8 months older by the time this comes round. Renato Sanchez, who was not huge, but he was a part there. He's massively off form. Ronaldo hasn't had a great season.
So Pepe as well, someone who's playing at like a really high level and was arguably Portugal's best player during Euros,
Yeah.
has now been playing in Turkey, where the standard of football is decent, but it's not that level he was playing in week
100%.
out at Real Madrid.
Yeah, no, it's a very, very good point.
Iceland have gone into a group with Argentina and Croatia.
So, I think second place is up for grabs.
I like that group. I like the look of that group.
Thoughts on Argentina? I think, is it kind of misleading to think that they are rubbish now because of the struggles that they had? Because ultimately they finished third in what is, you said so yourself, it's such a tough, such a tough group, that the South American.
I think that's kind of the thing as well with someone like Argentina, where it's a South American qualifying. You look at maybe quite a lot of other South American nations, and they draw their players from South America. We were talking about travelling across Russia. Now Argentina every break have to get the bulk of their squad back from the UK or Spain or Italy, and that just has such a massive factor in qualifying. I think maybe at a World Cup you'd just be silly to underestimate them. Everyone knows the quality that they have.
Yeah. Right, so Costa Rica have been drawn into Group E with Brazil and Switzerland, meaning there's only 2 teams left that we can get: Tunisia or Sadio Mane's Senegal.
Okay.
Senegal sounds like the toughest out of those two.
I don't think we want Senegal. Am I right,
No,
George?
but Senegal are interesting. Like, they're good on paper, but tactically they've kind of struggled a bit. They have a lot. I was saying sort of names like Kouyaté, Jusagana Gay, Mo Diame has actually stopped playing for them now, but they're kind of just big bruises, and they sometimes struggle to really like link up the play in the centre of the park. So I'd be interested to see what they can bring.
Yeah, and as a Liverpool fan, I think you'll be slightly nervous about an entire tournament for Sadio Mane to go to. He'll probably get injured in the.
But you know,
the
Liverpool will send a physio to the World Cup. with
and
him.
what will that do?
It won't change anything last time,
It
but
didn't make a difference. Right, we've got to be close now.
Sweden have been drawn in with Germany and Mexico. That sounds like another good group, a bit like Argentina, Iceland and Croatia. That'll be enjoyable to watch as a neutral.
Okay, the comments are starting to say that unless you're telling me Porkies,
It's Tunisia.
it's Tunisia.
It is Tunisia,
Pulled out by Puyol, who's just bizarre to look at right now. He just doesn't look right in a suit, does he?
He looks great, doesn't he?
Play with wingers quite. It seems like they're playing quite an attacking game. That you can expect, but it's so different to expect what they're then going to play at a World Cup when they're facing teams like England and teams like Belgium, compared to when they're playing domestically against in Africa against maybe teams where they'd expect to beat and they can afford to go attacking. So they could change that system a bit when it comes to the World Cup.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Right, pot 4. We're getting to that point now where...
Go on, Panama!
Near the end. Panama is the
Go
game.
on, Panama!
Panama would be a good story, wouldn't it? They're renowned for fouling, essentially.
And having a penalty?
Panama, who came so close, didn't they? Just in 2014 and got there this time. Probably even more so than Iceland because it already happened for them at the Euros. Panama are the story of the World Cup.
This is huge for them. It was a national holiday when they qualified because it's very much unheard of. And they were, as you say, so close in 2014. It just came down to that last game against the USA. They needed, I think, a draw to go through, and the US ended up beating them with a late goal that sent Mexico through. You fast forward 4 years, and then US need Mexico to do the same thing against Honduras, and they can't, which keeps the US out of the 2018 tournament and breaks a streak that goes back to 1990. So it's been a bit mad in CONCACAF, to be completely honest.
Insane.
Right, so Saudi Arabia with the first team drawn with Russia, Egypt and Uruguay. That's Group A complete now. And then Serbia's in... Oh, look at that. No, that can't be right, can it? You can't have more than 2 European teams. No, there we go.
Serbia
move across.
So Group E, it's Brazil, Switzerland, Costa Rica and Serbia. Okay.
Say that again, sorry?
Brazil, Costa Rica, Switzerland and Serbia. That's Group E complete.
Okay, I think Serbia is definitely a great one that we're missing. Of course, that's happening because of the Belgium draw, the fact that you can't have more than 2 European teams, so drawing them quite quickly was decent. Australia are an option. Banter Panda says, please don't fuck over Australia. I don't know what that means. Does that mean getting England?
Well, to be honest, they fucked over Syria by knocking them out, so... There you go.
Yep. Ellis LFC says, lovely to see Chris's beautiful voice. Grammar not spot on, but the sentiment remains.
The sentiment was there.
So one more team for England, and it's quickly kind of mounting up the different teams in the draw. Brazil, as you said, Brazil, Switzerland, Croatia and Serbia. Brazil will be absolutely delighted with that, don't you think? I think Serbia may be the toughest one in pot 4.
I think so, yeah. I went to see them play Wales actually during the qualifiers, and they were the masters of time wasting towards the end. Like in a way, it's actually you kind of have to
slightly
respect.
bitter there, George. Welsh fan.
My Welsh roots are shown here, but no. But I came out of that game and thought, you know, fair enough. If that's like, if you can play football like that, you can just stifle a team for 10 minutes. That's only going to bode well for them in tournament football. Yeah,
and a lot of really strong names. Serbia and Croatia. Those kind of players always bring up cracking players over the years.
Yeah. So Group B's been complete now. So we've got Portugal, Spain, Morocco, and Iran.
Okay.
I think again, the first two will be quite pleased with that. No group of death revealing itself just yet, I would say.
It's always a group of death. It's a shame.
Australia have been drawn. Here we go.
Where are they going into?
They are in Group C. France, Peru, and Denmark. I think.
It's not really death, but it's competitive.
It's an interesting one to call. I mean, you'd imagine France would top that group. You'd think anyway on the face of it, but that's going to be a really interesting one to call. Who else is going to go through in that group?
The scrabble for second in that one should be fascinating.
Absolutely,
really.
Yeah. I think that's what you'll kind of generally see with these kind of things. Is you'll see some groups that go right, a bit like the Champions League. You see two teams who are just clearly better than the rest. I think you're seeing that in Group B with Portugal and Spain, and then Morocco and Iran. But I think you're right. Maybe Group C.
For me, that's the thing with Group C. You look at Australia, Peru, Denmark. There's almost a talismanic element to all three of those teams. If it's not Aaron Moy for Australia, it's maybe Guerrero or Farfan for Peru, and obviously Eriksson for Denmark. So it's put your entire country's hopes on one guy's shoulders and say, go on, get us through to the next round.
So what I think you're saying there is that Queen's Park Rangers' Massimo Luongo will probably be the difference there. Getting
that is what I heard as well, James, actually.
Lots of QPR representatives in the World Cup this year.
Group D is now complete as well. You've got Argentina, Iceland, Croatia and Nigeria.
I'm looking forward to seeing Nigeria. Actually, I saw something on it was on the Bleacher Report yesterday. They've got the youngest average age of sort of a squad going into the World Cup of just under 25, and like the likes of Victor Moses, Alex Iwobi, Kelechi Iheanacho, Ahmed Musa, lots of players that sort of Premier League fans would be familiar with, and really kind of lively attacking players.
I guess that could work too.
Panama!
No, Greg Dyke's not doing that to the camera. He's delighted with Panama. Really?
Belgium, Panama, Tunisia and England. Group confirmed.
Straight off the bat, I'm pretty happy with that.
I mean, you are. Look at the smile on your face, James.
Happy with that. Let us know. Get in the comments right now. Tell us, are you happy with England's group? If you're not from England, if you're from another country and you're watching this stream, tell us what you think about your country's chances and how they're going to get on in their group. So Belgium, Panama, Tunisia, and England. Korea have just been drawn. They go into Group F. Germany, Mexico, Sweden and South Korea. And what's happening again is that Mexico, time and time again, I said before the stream, which is probably unfair, Mexico are generally irrelevant when it comes to World Cup. They get through the first group, don't they, and then go out quite easily. This is what's going to happen again, don't you think? Although you said they were good in that group.
I feel you shouldn't underestimate the Mexico side. I mean, you were saying, Chris, about them playing Belgium in a recent friendly, and Kevin De Bruyne was really, really complimentary of them. They just have a very good system. They play well. I mean, they've got players you know like Hernandez, Cuadrado, Carlos Vela as well.
Blanco still knocking about?
He's gone into politics now.
Has he? They love that, don't they? They all go for that South American, well, Central America.
I think that the only problem Mexico have really is that really the fans don't like the coach. He's not as passionate as they want. You look at Miguel Herrera, who was there before, a nutcase on the sidelines, a real nutter. No other way to bill him. Whereas Osorio's a bit more reserved, but he's a bit more tactical at the same time. He thinks a bit more. He tries to make decisions and really stifle the opponent. And sometimes that backfires. When Chile absolutely hammered them the other year, I think it was 6 or 7-0 at the end, that was seen as he's never coming back from this. And somehow he's kept the job and somehow he's managed to win some round. But it's just, there's so much infighting with Mexico. That's the problem, is that they can never get all of their own ducks in a row to really attack a tournament.
But why does that happen?
I think it's too, if I'm very honest, I think as a footballing nation it's too political. You have too many cooks spoiling the broth, essentially, with clubs trying to decide who, or at least have a say in who the national team manager is, that then feeding up to them not really knowing what their identity is, I think, as a nation. They are very passionate, But if you don't channel that in a creative and positive way, it just spills out in all the worst ways possible.
They do have one player actually I'm really excited to see at the World Cup who's like the wonderfully titled El Chucky. He's a guy called Irving Lozano. He was signed by PSV in the summer. He's got 10 goals in 11 Eredivisie appearances. He's kind of one of those players that's come...
El Chucky?
El Chucky, because he looks like Chucky from the films.
Really?
Is that tall?
Yeah, that's why he gets through all the defences.
He's called Chucky because he used to hide under teammates' beds and scare them.
Really?
Oh, is that where the name comes from?
Wow.
That's disturbing.
Irving Chucky Lozano because he used to hide and scare
Who's
them.
sharing a room with him at the World Cup?
Pretty harsh from George there. He's going, well, yeah, well, he looks like he's basically, yeah.
Right, no, what we should do, right, so we've got all the groups here, we'll run through and then we'll say who's going to finish top, who do we think is going to finish second.
Yeah.
Before we do that, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. There's a button below. We do live content all day, every day. Not literally, but you know.
Pretty much though.
Yeah, you may as well, right?
Pretty close, yeah.
But let's
Never go home.
Yeah, exactly. But let's go to Group A. We've got Russia, Saudi Arabia, Egypt and Uruguay. Have you got to back Uruguay to win that one?
Do you know what I would say with that one is that Russia, as the host nation, have got to be absolutely delighted with that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The thing with Egypt is they're quite notoriously defensive as a side. Uruguay, the one issue I've got with them, Suarez is horribly off form, and I'm not sure if they've got a real proper number 10. Nicolas Odero is at Seattle, but I don't think he's made for a World Cup personally. And Bentancur, who's at Juventus, formerly of Boca, is still exceptionally young. They've got a lot of sort of piano carriers, but I don't think they've got that piano player, so to speak.
I think we're looking at
as you would say, obviously.
We're going to talk about obviously all the teams there. But what I'm kind of seeing when I'm doing my sort of bits of research is the fact that there's a lot of, it feels like there's a lot of kind of ageing defences out there. Quite a few teams like that. So I want, because one thing I'm worried about with this World Cup is 2014 was cracking, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Goals, great goals.
Yeah.
You know, Colombia, James Rodriguez, unbelievable 7-1 in the semi-final. Then Euro 2016 was turgid. It was so poor to watch. There was so few goals.
If you're a Welsh fan.
Well, yeah, you were quite happy with it. Yeah, true. But what I'm hoping for, and I'm wondering, is if we'll go back to that World Cup style of 2014 with these sort of difficult defences, or are we just going to see really deep defences again because of the lack of pace that a lot of teams have?
I think looking at it now, I think a lot of the teams that will play like that have been drawn together, thankfully, from a neutral's perspective.
Okay.
Even England's group, I would say, Belgium aside, Panama and Tunisia are going to be that more stoic defensive test for England to try and overcome. That's where Belgium, if I'm a neutral at least, I look at that and say that could be an absolute cracker. That could be 3-3, 3-0, 2-1, whatever you want. All better off with that one. But yeah, I think a lot of the more defensively minded side will probably cancel each other out in the groups.
Let's have a look at some of your comments, guys.
Before we head to the comments, right?
Okay.
Sorry, I just read a comment. So we've got the games are out. So England, we're going to play Tunisia first in Volgograd. Next up, 6 days later, we play Panama in Nizhny Novgorod, and then 4 days later we play in Kaliningrad. Now, Volgograd to Nizhny Novgorod is a cool 1,000 kilometres, a 12.5-hour car journey. I don't think we'll be driving.
Yeah, no.
Then we've got from Nizhny Novgorod to Kaliningrad is a 1,700 kilometre journey. 21-hour drive. We're obviously not going to drive, but that is a hell of a long journey.
I guess,
there's not a single services that got long there.
You hold it. You got to hold it.
Is that going across time zones as well?
It must be. It's going straight east to west.
Let's have a look at some of your comments. I think that's a good point. It's going to be a huge part of it, is the amount of travel. I guess you had that to a degree in Brazil. It's a ginormous country. Russia even bigger, obviously. But that will play a part. But the bottom line is, these guys are professionals. They should be able to deal with that group. Let us know your thoughts on England. Here are a couple of comments from you. Croc17, I don't care who we have. I just want Southgate to back up his words and take all the kids. If we get a spanking, so what? Better than sticking with the same old.
Feels a bit like USA 94 in that sense with the travel logistics, doesn't it? I can't imagine it'll be as simple, but again, it does. I'll be curious to see if any of those who attended that World Cup, from coaches, players, etc., bring anything with them to this one. Yeah,
it's very true. Mateus, Portugal and Spain should get through. Group H is considered the group of death from Matthias Hansen. Let's go through the groups one by one, and what we'd love for you guys to do is to go in the comments and tell us who are the 2 teams that are going to make it through that group.
Yeah.
Let's go with that first group. So you've got Russia, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Uruguay. Salah is the guy that everyone's talking about, banging in the goals. Do you see Egypt maybe topping that group?
No, not topping it, but I see him qualifying. I do think they've got. I mean, if Salah can continue his current form, he genuinely can be a real talismanic player. And there's a difference between having one very good player and actually having a genuine son you can pin your hopes on. And they've got, that Chris was saying, they're quite good defensively. Ahmed Hegazi's been at West Brom this season. He's been a really solid centre half. They're, Mohamed El Neni's a good player. They've got players who can do a job. And for me, like I would see them beating Russia. And then Saudi Arabia, I don't want to be too harsh on the guys, but I just can't see them doing that much.
Russia could go out, couldn't they?
Most definitely. I mean, look, it's a favourable draw comparative to what they could have had, but at the same time, I wouldn't be putting any.
Oh, they do go out. Sorry, Russia.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not.
Because if there's anyone you want to make an enemy of, it's Russia.
Jack Knack.
I take that back.
Jack Knack says it's going to be the same old shit. Wake up, James, in capital letters. No, I won't, because look, we're still in it. There are other countries that aren't in the tournament. Sorry, guys. Sorry, George.
To look at it.
These are true.
We'll forget about that.
Oh, God, that's the name. Ambadjua and Ayush Pudel, Uruguay and Egypt to go through.
Friend of the show.
Probably not anymore. Apologies, mate. Let's move on to the next
Group B. Always tougher to call. No, I said not tougher to call, really. On paper, Portugal, Spain, Morocco and Iran looks quite simple in calling your top 2 there.
Yeah.
But is there any chance of Morocco throwing up a surprise?
Hervé Renard is a curious coach in the sense that he's done a lot of great stuff in African football. He did wonders with Ivory Coast, and then obviously they've failed because they managed to get Mark Wilmots in, which was a terrible idea. If they're going to take anyone's spot, it's going to be Portugal's. Because I think Spain showed in qualification they're still as strong as ever. And I think I find far more fragility with Portugal when I look at them than I do with Spain. And I think it would, you'd be looking at one of the biggest World Cup upsets ever, I think, if Spain didn't make it out of this group.
Yeah, I think that seems like an absolute banker to me, Portugal and Spain making it through that. Just to say, guys, click on that eye. There's a card there saying who will win the World Cup. We'll talk about that at the end of this live stream. But before that, in terms of the comments, don't say who you want to win it. Just vote there, and we'll have a look at it at the end of the stream. England, I don't think I put them in there because they're not high enough in the favourites.
After all, you're wearing the England shirt, you're optimistic, and you don't put England down as an option, James.
Doesn't want to put more pressure on the lads.
No,
exactly. I'm doing what Southgate did. Southgate essentially just came out.
He's got the memo, right?
We're rubbish. They're all kids. It's not going to work out. But we'll try and win it. Bit annoyed about that, but we'll get onto that in a bit as well. Group C: France, Australia, Peru, Denmark. Any Aussies out there? Let us know your thoughts on this group. Do you think so?
I mean, if Christian Eriksen can do what he did in that playoff, again, it's about pinning your hopes on one player. And big players have got to turn up. It's the biggest of stages, but Deschamps and France have got to be pretty happy with that group as well.
Yeah.
But it looks slightly tricky. I mean, the Group A, you don't really know who's going to finish second. I think it's probably completely up for grabs, and I'd definitely say that between Australia, Peru and Denmark.
And Peru as well kind of made it through the playoffs, I think it was, with New Zealand. Only just pipped to the post by Argentina in the first place in terms of the group. Do you know too much about Peru?
They were very dogged defensively. They got a great result against Argentina. And the thing is, I noticed when it came to playing New Zealand in the playoff, they massively missed Guerrero. He was suspended for what was initially thought to be a failed drugs test, and I think it was alleged to be cocaine, but that was found to not be the case, and he claimed it was some cold medicine or something like that, and it's still been still being decided. But him missing meant they had no focal point. They didn't have anyone to hold the ball up to play things through, and I think, touch wood, he stays fit. He's well into his 30s now, so he's not a spring chicken. So if they miss him, it's a huge blow to Peru.
Peter Holmes says France and Denmark will make it out of the group. Mohit Suktanka did France and Peru are going to make it through. Come on, guys. Amapreet Singh Lamba, France and Peru. Managerless Australia. Have they not got manager Australia?
I believe Postecoglou might have stepped down. Yeah, I think.
Wow.
They weren't that impressive in qualifying either, to be fair. The playoff that they needed was a direct consequence of the fact they couldn't beat Thailand by 2 clear goals. They had so many shots and just maybe I think you made the point earlier on that maybe it was because they weren't used to being kind of the leaders of the game or whatever, but it's a surprise because I actually think that's not a bad sort of set of players in terms of that Australia squad. There's definitely talent in there.
They really struggled to get past Syria as well. I mean, they made hard work of that in the end.
And I guess even Honduras was 0-0 in the first leg.
Yes.
The second leg they were able to break them down. Be interested to see how they get on. I think, as dare I say it, if Tim Cahill was still playing at that age, then something's maybe wrong.
I think we'll expect to see him there.
He'll score a goal.
He'll score a screamer. Yeah. Group D, Argentina. I'm fascinated by Argentina for the World Cup because the beautiful story is the fact that Lionel Messi, can he do that Maradona thing?
It's not that beautiful.
Team? I think it'd be a great story. I'd love to watch that doc afterwards.
There's a number of those on that precipice, though. In fairness, Di Maria, Banega. There's a few who this is the last chance. Admittedly, Messi sits on top because if he doesn't do it, and you look at that crunch game they had towards the end of qualifying there where he scores the hat-trick, again, it's funny to me that so much pressure and expectation is put on him, yet for so many years they preferred Tevez, a lot of the people, because they saw him as he's our guy, whereas Messi left as soon as he could, and he's more European than Argentinian.
What's their relationship? Because obviously he retired from international football. Well, he said he did, and then he came.
Yeah,
back.
I was there that night when he did it. It was.
Is that tainted the relationship between Argentina fans and Messi?
No, because I think at the end of the day it's Lionel Messi, and I think what you have to remember was I think that was him being almost too enveloped in the emotion of the moment, because again they'd lost that Copa America, they'd lost the one the year before, and they'd lost the 2014 World Cup final. It was a lot to take. There was, in the mix zone that night, there was a lot of crestfallen people who realised we're going to go down in history as the nearly men. We had so much talent and so many opportunities to win finals, and we lost every single one. And even if they win the World Cup now, there will be cynics who say, yeah, but you gave up 3 really easy ones. Because they could have beaten Chile. They really could have beaten Chile in the Centenario in the US.
I think what's incredible is because he's so great, it's forgotten how many other great players they have there. And often so many incredible forward talents as well. Getting to the Group D, Argentina, Iceland, Croatia. You just moved it away, so I don't know where the last one is.
Nigeria. Sorry, I was going to the comments. Basically, everybody is saying Argentina and Croatia. Most people are pretty happy with that as their 1-2.
I quite fancy Iceland in there.
Yeah,
I really like Iceland. Yeah, I think they're such a solid team. Like you look at their results in qualifying, the teams they beat, like 3-0 away at Turkey, 2-0 at home to Ukraine, 1-0 at home to Croatia in qualifying. Like they're beating good teams. They've got it's this factor of team spirit as well. They have so well. They've had quite a settled team for a while now. A lot of players, maybe apart from the likes of.
There's no other people in the population, is it?
Are you an adult man? Learn how to play football, and we'll get you in the team.
George, are you going to be Icelandish during the World Cup, and you're going to join in the claps because Wales aren't in it?
I might have to. I mean, I've got to take some team. I've got to take someone from kind of Northern Europe somewhere.
So you're going to Iceland?
Go on. Yeah,
I just loyalty to Iceland here live.
It's a perfect storm though, Iceland, because they did put a lot of money into infrastructure. They did build a lot of pitches around the turn of the millennium, but the financial crash actually helped Icelandic football because they lost a lot of foreigners that were in the league who were on a lot of money because teams couldn't afford them.
Right.
And so a lot of Icelandic players came home to play, and ones that were coming through suddenly got chances where they'd been vacated by the foreign players.
There you go. Who said a financial crisis doesn't help people?
Yeah.
Every cloud still.
Will Johnson come back as well?
Every cloud.
I went to Iceland, Austria. He could barely get through the warm-up, the poor bloke. But who knows? Or maybe he's had his fill now with the Euro 2016. I think the one thing is that they, again, like Costa Rica, they're known now. They're a known quantity. I wonder how Sigurdsson will get on. I think after probably what's been quite a difficult season so far, it'd be interesting to see if. I think he's an Allardyce player. I think he'll do quite well actually for Everton, but he's going to be the main man for them. So most people just say Argentina and
a few saying Iceland, but not many people from Nigeria.
Yeah, well, Nigeria in that nightmare draw that we sort of concocted up at the start. So again, that's a tricky one. And I think maybe if there's going to be a shock, then maybe that could be it with Argentina having those struggles.
Definitely.
Group E: Brazil, Switzerland, Costa Rica, and Serbia. Again, second place up for grabs here.
Massively.
I would back Switzerland for that. I mean, they were pretty phenomenal during the qualifying stages.
I just have concerns about their lack of sort of clinical forward. I mean, in fairness, they have Brelan Bolo, but he's still very young and hasn't really been able to prove anything. And they played Seferovic against Northern Ireland, and to use an old quote, he couldn't hit a cow's backside with a banjo, to be fair to him.
I think what you say about Mbola is interesting as well, because he missed pretty much the whole of last season after signing for Schalke through injury. Like, started the season really well for them last year, picked up a really long-term injury. He's just kind of working his way back to fitness now, and he could be, like, you're right, they do lack a focal point up front. If he can sort of kick on for the second half of this season, then he could help them hugely.
Yeah.
Because other than kind of Shaqiri, and then they've got players like Admin Mehmedi, Seferovic, they're not names that you would expect to carry you through a World Cup.
Going into the comments, let us know your thoughts. Who's going to get out of that group? What group is it? Group E?
Group E, yeah.
Brazil and Serbia, says Peter Holm. Brazil, Costa Rica.
That's interesting.
We've got Brazil and Switzerland, says Joe Lucas, who is possibly from Switzerland because he's gone capital letters. That's just my own investigation work. And also, hit that, click that eye. Let us know who's going to win the World Cup. Who's going to win it? Is it going to be England? You might not be able to vote there, but you can always let us know in the comments.
Why ask the question, James?
Well, because
you can't lure that.
England are on the way, aren't they? We've got a couple of groups and we get to them. And also, if you are new and it's the first time you're watching Ball Street, then hit subscribe. We do a lot of live content and a lot of great content. So hit that subscribe button. Let's move on to
Group F. We've got Germany, Mexico, Sweden and Korea. It's got to be Germany, right?
Yeah, I think Germany.
Semi-finals this time for Germany, as usual.
Yeah, I think it's probably between. I mean, that's the thing with Sweden. You know, I think losing Zlatan helped them. Which sounds
He's definitely
crazy.
coming back for this World Cup. I would put 20 quid in it right now.
I don't think he will, though. I think I almost think he's self-aware enough to know that it will do more damage than good.
I think he's self-aware of his own brand more than his own country. And it's.
Oh, you're talking about Joachim Löw's sniffing? Is that what you're talking about?
Wait, how did you whip up?
He's going to do it again, isn't he? That's the thing. Well, things I'm concerned
How did we
about.
go from Zlatan Ibrahimovic to Joachim Löw sniffing?
Oh, because sorry, I was looking for a second, then you were going, is he going to do it again? And you went, well, I paid his 20 quid.
But let's talk about Joachim Löw. Will he sniff his balls again? I think he might.
We can only pray that he doesn't. Let us know, yes or no, in the comments. Will Joachim Löw sniff his balls and armpit again? I mean, that is the maddest thing I saw in 2016. Sorry, I just heard all that and it just...
There's going to be like whacking cam, isn't there? Just him, the whole way.
Just in the dugout, just waiting.
Like press your red button,
absolutely waiting for him to... Do you think Zlatan will come back?
I absolutely think he'll offer himself to come back. Whether or not Sweden choose to accept it, I mean, because after the Sweden-Italy game, the manager of Sweden came out and he was pretty angry and vocal in the fact that said, look, we've just got to the World Cup. Why are you asking me about Zlatan Ibrahimovic? You know, we've just qualified without him. Yeah, stop talking to me about him. But Zlatan Ibrahimovic, he's 36 years old. He's just gone through 7 months of rehab, intense rehab, to solve a double knee ligament injury. And he's back playing football again at 36. I don't think he'd just do that to try and win the Premier League or Man United. I personally think that he's got one eye on the World Cup with Sweden and coming out of retirement. If Messi can do it, why can't Zlatan Ibrahimovic?
Fair point. I think the bottom line is that he doesn't play the qualifiers at all. Yeah. Again, let us know in the comments. Do you think Zlatan would come back? I think it would be detrimental to the squad.
I totally agree. Like, it's very much a sense of like a post-Zlatan squad. Like, it has this cohesion, this Swedish squad, and it's kind of, you've got Emil Forsberg who plays for Red Bull Leipzig. He's kind of the focal point around it, and you've got players like Lindelof who's at Man United, and it just is. There was always that, as much as Zlatan is a hero in Sweden, there was kind of that sense of it's like Zlatan and the 10 guys with him to an extent, which is just not anymore at all. Marcus Berg's the striker for them most of the time, and he's like providing a very good option. He also was talking about Lukaku, the most headed goals in qualifying. Berg was the same with 4 goals, and it's like, that does tell you a little bit about how they play football as well. They do stick it up there, but to effect. And
they're going to be difficult to beat as well. You saw that against Italy, that they defended for their lives there. And so maybe sometimes when you take out that main man, that figure that everyone's just trying to get the ball to, actually everyone else steps up their game and you're better for it.
I think you see that with Argentina as well sometimes. The second Messi starts running, everyone stands still because it's just, you don't think. Yeah, and I think that's the thing with Sweden. It's 2 key changes. It's losing Zlatan, which is not a slight towards him, but it did put more emphasis on everyone around them to pick up and to do something different. And I think if you reintegrated him now, with all this work that the new coach has done, you've got to try and then devise strategies to include him, because he's not the same player as Marcus Berg, which sounds almost clickbaity to say he's not the same player as Marcus Berg, but they do offer very different identities as a striker.
Let's go into the comments. This is what you're saying. Sushar, Zlatan coming back would be the worst thing for Sweden. With him, they never played the type of football that they do now. It's just gone up. Lindelof is quality. Would you agree with that?
Lindelof has really started to show his quality, and he was fantastic in those 2 playoffs against Italy. They shut Italy out for 180 minutes, and it was a literally a defensive fortress, Sweden.
Yeah, I
How
thought
they managed to-
Grankvist was fantastic in those games as well, a real giant for them.
Okay. Let's move on to the next group.
Right, the next group is
It's England's
ours. Oh no, it's not. It's Group F.
We
Got you there. No, I didn't. I'm joking.
Yeah, Group G, Group G. Go on then.
Group G: Belgium, Panama, Tunisia, and England.
Okay, here we go, guys. It's the bit you've been waiting for. England are in Group G. Are they going to get out of this group? Let me know in the comments. Who are the two teams that are going to make it out of Group G? First of all, Sam, as an England fan, optimistic about our chances in the 2018 World Cup. Are you happy with that group?
Well, you've got to be.
Why do you have to start every England comment with?
Because that's what following England is about. There we go.
His dad's a
Algeria.
horse.
Mike Tyson says Southgate
Damn
started
it, you got me
celebrating
there.
the flag.
No, look,
That's what
England
it's
will get out of that group. But we'll
Great,
struggle.
that's great.
But we'll struggle.
Great stuff.
It will probably be 1-0 against Panama from the 75th minute when Gary Cahill gets a header.
You were just looking for a slogan for the bus, weren't you? England will get out of the group. Don't need anything else.
That'd be good, yeah. Belgium and England says Mohit Suktanka. Got some tough names today, guys, and I'm rubbish at them. But yeah, I think I said that. If I didn't, sorry. Belgium and England will make it out of the group. I think most people are going to say that. Belgium and Panama, says Jack Knack. Trolling. Have Panama got any chance? I mean, we had a look at their sort of stats through qualifying, and I mean, it looks like the Matrix to me, but you were saying they were quite defensive.
Yeah, basically. I mean, you look at, they've got no real household names in that squad. I mean, like, probably their main man is a centre-half called Roman Torres, plays football for Seattle Sounders in the MLS. They're a good MLS side. They're kind of, at the moment, they're very close to the MLS final, but that's not the level of football that you'd expect other people. And I would expect they're going to come out and play quite defensive. They play quite a defensive kind of like, they play 4-4-2, but it's very much the kind of, you've got your holding midfielders a lot of the time.
Right.
Who just kind of sit
That
in and
Tony
marshal
Pulis box.
the kind of, yeah, exactly.
Don't never leave the box, centre midfielders.
Yeah, and they've also got the oldest squad as well in terms of like teams that have qualified for the tournament with an average age of just under 30. So kind of, there's going to be some experience in there, but obviously no experience at this level of football.
Yeah, I think that we had that in our dream draw. I think having Panama is it's a dream, to be honest. You can say what you like in terms about they're having their first opportunity in the World Cup, and that's great. But dare I say it, if we can't beat Panama, then even I should give up.
You won't.
But I won't.
If we draw 0-0 against Panama, you'll take the positives.
They're an interesting one. I mean, Torres has already committed to a massive tattoo for the World Cup on the back of his calf. Like the logo, just huge in colour and everything. And I think that kind of typifies their attitude, that they're just delighted to be there.
Could there be some dyed hair in this Panama side, I think?
I don't think they'll go Romania. No, I don't think they'll do that. I think they've got a lot more sense than that.
Just giant
100%.
tattoos on their backs.
But I think that's the thing. I don't think they'll take the tournament lightly. The issue I have with them is when I look at them up front, Blas Perez he's creaking every time he walks. He is really old.
Who does he play for?
He plays for Municipal. He was in MLS for a long time, and he's quite a crafty veteran striker, a little bit of guile. I can always see the smile. You know exactly the type of guy I'm on about.
Grant Holt, is he? He's in
a little
Grant
bit, yeah.
Holt,
CONCACAF's Grant Holt, 100%.
With them.
Have they, right?
And he's. I mean, for me, that's their main threat. Gabriel Torres is another one who's a bit more of a ball carrier, but I don't see a lot of dynamism in this team. Armando Cooper, again, another one that's playing for Toronto and MLS, who just made MLS Cup final alongside Torres of Seattle. They're not players that should really scare England, and I think you're spot on. It's not arrogant to say that this England team should dispatch Panama.
Yeah, I think the entire group. Let me know your thoughts on England's group here. I'm going to go into the comments in just a second, but I'm going to give you my thoughts first. I think this is a dream group, but I think the way that English people should tackle it is go, can we play an attacking brand of football, play without fear, and have a go at these guys and do something decent. Because I think what is good is that no one's going to expect us to win that group. But
why?
Because Belgium, I think Belgium they are in that top 5-6 teams to win the whole thing.
They're on the brink of it, I'd say that. I think the thing, again, when England played Belgium, the thing to do is just try and play this attacking brand of football, because Belgium play such an attacking brand that it's almost pointless sitting in. I mean, they played like with a sort of a 3-4-3, kind of like a 3-6-1 formation, but even their wing backs are so attacking. I mean, they've been playing like Yannick Ferreira Carrasco, who's he's not a fullback at all.
Winger.
They've been playing him as a left wing back. They play such an attacking team that it's almost like maybe just the argument against them is, and it'd be quite interesting because Southgate has been playing 5-3-5 at the back with England. That would be quite an interesting tactical battle. But just go at them, test them out at the back.
That's interesting. I mean, I guess I think the last time I probably saw Belgium play was against Ireland in the Euros, and Ireland did have a go at them, and it did kind of. I think the pressure of their golden generation. Has got some on occasion.
Yeah, Wales
had a decent go as well. Yeah, very true. Yeah. Sorry. Bloody hell, no, the bias just creeps out of him. But bottom line is who are the best centre backs in the Premier League? Vertonghen or Alderweireld? Probably in the top three,
Vincent
right?
Kompany.
Vincent Kompany.
If he's fit, yeah.
Okay, who's the best striker? Who's in the top three of the best strikers? Lukaku, right. Who's probably who's the best player in the Premier League?
Kevin De Bruyne.
Who's the second best? Who's the second best? Probably Eden Hazard.
Yeah.
So we are
Stop
not.
it, Jay. Stop it. You're supposed to be Mr. Optimistic.
I think it's how you blend them together, though. That if I'm looking for a positive from England, it's the fact that they've tried this back three, and if you look, a lot of the players that are playing in that system play with a back three at club level as well. Spurs do it. Leicester have done it. There's a lot of teams, even some of the Chelsea boys, have played in a back three system. So they'll already have a bit of familiarity that they're not having to have drilled into them when they go to St George's Park for these friendlies. So I think there's a little bit of positivity there. And if you really do want to be a bit pessimistic, you've only got to finish second. You haven't got to top the thing. You can come second and everything's fine. So
is this Gareth Southgate sitting next to us?
But that's the thing. I think there are no expectations for England at all. Again, let me know what you think about this. But I don't think there is any real expectations for England. Certainly from everyone I talk to on Ball Street. But we should be getting past.
The thing that worries me about playing teams like Costa Rica or Algeria or Panama is if you do get into that second round, or the knockout stages, sorry, you haven't really properly tested yourself. Like I'm not sure when we actually play Belgium, whether we play Belgium first or last, but I would have genuinely preferred England to have played 3 semi-good teams, and it would have been one of those groups you go, ooh, who's going to qualify? Because then you would have been playing well. But when England play Panama, you know they're going to switch off a little bit. They won't be able to stop it. Just like when we played Iceland, they literally shat themselves in the Euro 2016.
Ramesh says, don't see any difference between Iceland and Panama. So he kind of agrees with you. Marouge, hopefully I'm saying your name right, Croatia to go all the way this year. I think it's about time they kind of did something again. Obviously, got some decent players in there.
Is it they got to the semis with David Suquet?
Yeah, 1998, long time ago.
First time they were at a World Cup as well.
Iconic player says, final 16 and I'm happy with England.
Do you know what
I would say? I would go quarterfinals now because of that group, because I think we will make it through that group in second place. I guess the bottom line is who you're going to play in the round of 16.
Talk about the final group?
Let's talk about the final group.
Poland, Senegal, Colombia and Japan, which I think on paper looks like the hardest group to call in terms of who's going to win and who's going to come second, or is there something that's outstanding?
I just really like the look of this group in terms of from a neutral perspective.
Fun, yeah.
Every game in that looks like it's going to be a good, even game of football, really. You've got a lot of teams with... Every team you look at there has good players.
Falcao's been banging form again this year. He's come back to his glorious best, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, James Rodriguez, of course, will be back in that side. I mean, again, we've said it a few times now, anyone getting out of that South American group is a decent side. I would expect them to top that group. Colombia? What do you think?
I think they could finish second. I think the thing is, James loves playing with Colombia. You can just tell, because he's not only is he given a lot more responsibility and allowed to be the central figure, but I think just the aura around him and the fact that he's with his it's one of those funny things that you speak to a lot of the South American players and those who travel far away. They love international duty because they're back with their friends, maybe ones that they don't see all the time or get to hang out with. So there's a little bit more of a party atmosphere, whereas if you're not travelling so far, or we saw Rio Ferdinand talk about how he kind of distanced himself from teammates. It's interesting to see the real duality in the way that national teams come together and their feelings to each other.
Aaron Sharp says Senegal and Colombia to make it out of that group. Mohit says Colombia and Japan. Keep letting us know who you think's going to make it out of that final group. George, bit of homework. I don't know much about Japan. I wonder if you could just have you got it up now? If you can do, that would be great. I'll give you a second. We'll talk about Senegal. We spoke about them a little bit earlier in the live stream. I think it's about time an African side really went far into the tournament. In a group like this,
Make Pele
Senegal-
not look so silly.
I think Senegal have got, yeah.
Is it Senegal that have got the amazing kit as well, with the full line?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
they do indeed.
I mean, so I'm going to be a fan of Senegal in that group simply because of that
You're going to
kit.
be getting that kit, are you?
Yeah.
Maybe not, but maybe.
I think you look at Senegal and you know, there's been a great point already made that on paper they look a fantastic side. The real weakness when I look at them is goalkeeper every time. They've called up Clement Diop, who is with LA Galaxy in MLS. He's a bit of a flapper, that's the best way I can put it. And if he's in the pool of 3 goalkeepers that they're calling up semi-regularly and given a chance to, that makes me think you've probably not got the best sort of goalkeepers at your disposal.
And I'm guessing when you think of goalkeepers flapping, is it corners? Is it things like that?
Yes,
That's
things
the
like set
basics,
pieces,
right?
things like that. Maybe dropping a ball that they shouldn't, or even not collecting a shot that's fired at them, that kind of thing.
I get Poland themselves as well. You've got, yes, that is the easiest group. That doesn't mean they're a bad side. It's a great opportunity for them, I think, to go far in the competition. With
Lewandowski,
Lewandowski.
top goal scorer in qualifying with 16 goals. I mean,
Unbelievable.
he's just a striker that no defence wants to play against.
Japan?
But yeah, they're just an interesting side. I mean, it's interesting because you kind of look at them and their main attacking threat you'd think would be Shinji Okazaki, who's sort of so good and proved, especially this season, 2 seasons ago, how good he was for Leicester. But I was talking about Japan with Chris before the show, and you kind of saying interestingly how they kind of like to mirror the shape, because I wasn't sure why Okazaki doesn't get played that much for Japan, and I wasn't entirely sure why, but you were saying it's because they quite like to play this like sort of 4-3-3 formation, which doesn't fit Okazaki so well.
There's a lot of mirroring between the men's and the women's team. Some of it is because I think as a nation, Japan's kind of realised we're better off passing the ball than trying to outrun everyone, because that's not our strength. And for the longest time, the Japanese women's national team has really excelled at World Cup level because of its ability to retain the ball. It hasn't quite transitioned in the same way for the men's team, I think. I don't think they've gained that significant advantage. But that's one of the problems that Okazaki has, is that when they're playing this solitary lone figure, it doesn't really work if it's him, because he's not really that. He works better in a 2 or a 3, maybe out wide, but again, he's not offering the creativity that you want. They tried Mike Havenaar, who you and I talked about before, a long time ago, who's this big Dutch-Japanese forward. Looks totally out of place in the team lineup, bless him. But again, just it didn't feel a good fit, and I think that's kind of one of the problems Japan's had. They haven't been able to find that perfect forward for their situation.
Okay.
I think that group's just going to be interesting as well in terms of playing styles. Like, you've just got quite a lot of different. You've got Poland, who maybe they're just a team of quite physical players, like Lewandowski, Krychowiak, Pazdan at the back. And then you look at kind of Japan, where you've got quite a small team. It's just a team of small players. Yeah. Colombia, obviously kind of quick football, as a Senegal. So it's going to be interesting to see these kind of differing styles clash there. It's the most... Well, actually, you look at it, you've got a team from... Every team in that group is from a different continent. So it's going to be a really nice kind of interesting mix of fans as well.
Yeah, true. Games. Okay, so we're going to talk about who's going to win it, who's going to be a dark horse, and will there be any giant killings? Boys, have a little look at the groups as I go into the comments for a second. Hit that little eye in the corner and you can vote. Let's have a look as we're going at the moment. I might need to refresh it just to see what the votes have been. But let us know who you think is going to win the World Cup, and let us know in the comments as well who's going to win the World Cup and if England have got a chance at all.
I'll tell you what, a question that's been asked in the comments soon is who the Golden Boot winner would be, and loads and loads and loads of you are talking. Lewandowski, Bentner, someone's obviously feeling very sarcastic today. Morata, Messi, Griezmann, Salah, Salah or Mane, Messi, Pogba. Who do we think?
Well, sorry, just to say, so we've got a graphic, I think, of this. Let me know, lads, once if it's gone up. It has. Great. So on the odds, you've got Lionel Messi and Neymar are the two most likely, apparently, from the odds to be the Golden Boot winner. Cristiano Ronaldo, Gabriel Jesus could be a very interesting tournament for him.
Jesus,
Sandro Wagner, Thomas Müller, Griezmann, Timo Werner.
Where happened to Thomas Müller, eh?
I was just going to say, whenever I think of a Golden Boot, I think it's got to be a German.
It has to be a German.
It's not Miroslav Klose or it's Müller, or in this case, Timo Werner, again, has just exploded. That move from Stuttgart to RB Leipzig was the best thing that could happen to him.
Yeah, and so I guess part of that is going to be the group that you're in to kick off with. I think I've got a real... I mean, this kind of leads on to who I think is going to win it. I've got a funny feeling Brazil are going to do it this time. I think the squad is just so good. Let's know what you think. But I just feel like, especially sometimes the tournament before will either make life difficult for you in the next tournament or not. For Spain, for example, bizarrely winning all of those tournaments, it got to a point where I'm not sure they had the stomach for it anymore. Whereas Brazil, I think, after what happened in the last tournament, that 7-1 defeat, you've got most of those players are still in that squad, and you've added some cracking players who've come into possibly the prime of their career now. Coutinho, Gabriel Jesus,
Casemiro as well.
God, yeah.
Fantastic.
Even Paulinho's like tearing it up, isn't it? Yeah. And I think you saw in some of the football that they were doing as they pleased against England in that friendly. I think you could see that. For me, I think they're going to be the side that are going to do it.
Last non-Europeans to win it as well.
True.
I'm going to say Mexico. All right. When United signed Hernandez back in 2010, just before the World Cup, no one really knew who he was, but he announced himself on that World Cup, and he was fantastic.
Are you actually saying that Mexico are in the World Cup because of Hernandez?
No, I'm saying that Lozano going into this World Cup has obviously been in a good reign of form, and this is going to be the World Cup where he's going to announce himself. So it's going to be the 2018 version of Hernandez, and Lozano, Chucky, as you know,
he's the guy.
He's going to guide them to, I would say, the semi-final.
Kristan, who do you think?
I like Timo Werner. The more, like I said, the more I look at him, I think he's in a good system. They're in a good group. I think he'll find the net quite easy. Yeah.
Nietzsche Preacher says, "I'd love Poland to win it." Brainy Graph says Coutinho's going to have a belter of a tournament. So I guess kind of agreeing with me. Jack Knack says Neymar will win the Golden Boot. George, who do you think is going to win the tournament?
I do quite like the look of France as well. Just with
their squad.
They're just quite unpredictable as well, because they are quite young and they've just got these players who, I think you're looking at a lot of players as well with the likes of Kylian Mbappe, someone like Thomas Lemar, maybe like Samuel Umtiti's playing fantastically well at, for Barcelona. And a lot of them are maybe players who just haven't played at the World Cup before, and they're going to kind of have this freshness about going to their first World Cup, looking to just hit the ground running. Yeah, for me, I can see. And if someone like Ousmane Dembele as well, you'd expect he'd be back fit and playing by that time. He's almost become a bit of a forgotten man now because of injury. So, I'll stick my neck out and say maybe France.
Because this is the problem with my my optimism for England. And I want to be optimistic. And I think Dele Alli, I think Harry Kane, I think others, decent players that we've got. But then you look at that France team, or you look at the Germany team, you look at the Spain team, you look at the France squad. They're all world class, aren't they? I feel like football's kind of moved on a little bit. I guess the Champions League is so potent now that there are so many cracking players there that these squads are like, it's not even the first 11 that are great, it's the 11 after, and you really can find the right balance. And so France are a great shout. Final thing I want to talk about here is who's going to win the player of the tournament. We can look at some previous winners of the Golden Ball, I think they call it now, but essentially player of the tournament. 1982, Paolo Rossi, Maradona, of course, in 86, Schillaci in 90, Romario, 94, Ronaldo, 98, Oliver Kahn, 2002, Zidane, who I didn't realise had won it in 2006, despite everything that had happened. Diego Forlan, which was a bit of a random one, wasn't it, back in 2010? But did well. And Lionel Messi, who I mean probably shouldn't have won it at the last World Cup, and wasn't too pleased about winning it. We've also got the odds for who could win the player of the tournament on this occasion. Of course, it is miles away, but have you got a gut feeling on who's going to be the guy?
Paul Pogba jumped out to me for some reason. I don't know why. I just feel like you look at the way
25-1.
It's only a short sample size, but you look at the way he's kind of embraced his role at Manchester United this season. The way he's kind of said, you know what, yeah, I'll be the player. I'll do what I have to do. I don't care anymore. And I feel as if he can take that mentality with him to the French national team, then yeah, he's got, I would say, a little bit of a better supporting cast. He's got the likes of Mbappe and people like that. I could see him just sealing it. I could see him having a Zidane tournament sort of circa 98.
Surely that would massively depend on how Didier Deschamps actually plays him, because at Euro 2016 he used him as sort of a deep line midfield, and that's not where you're going to get the best out of Paul Pogba. You've got to let him express himself as a sort of more advanced central midfielder rather than holding him back for defensive duties.
I wonder though, maybe in the Euros, I think you saw sometimes Deschamps was a little more reluctant sometimes to use Kante as much, maybe because he hadn't, like Kante's now going to have had 2 more seasons under his belt at top level and playing consistently so well for Chelsea that I think you maybe think that Deschamps will actually just say, be quite happy to leave Kante to do more defensive work and free up Pogba a bit, as well as Bakayoko as well, who's playing pretty well for Chelsea. But I think for me, if I'm saying France are going to win the tournament, then I think maybe Pogba is a shout. But I also do think Neymar could be, just from looking at this season, how he's gone to PSG and it's just like taken that mantle of main man so well and just hasn't phased him at all. And it's going to be a similar role that he'd be playing for Brazil.
Yeah.
I could see him maybe.
That's a good point. And I think the move to PSG, obviously he wanted that Ballon d'Or. And going to PSG is a great move in that sense because the league is weaker, isn't it? And so you would imagine that he would be able to kind of run down the clock a little bit more as it gets to the end of the season. That you would expect them to win the league quite comfortably, quite early, and that kind of sets him up. But I guess maybe for Pogba in 2016, Neymar in 2014, what you could see in this tournament is that when it was they were the home nation, it was maybe a little too much pressure, a little too early. I mean, saying that Neymar was fantastic in 2014, but Pogba certainly wasn't. So maybe without that kind of spotlight in Russia, for both of those, it could be, and them both being a little bit older, it might be the time for them.
Pogba's already got a golden ball from the 20 World Cup as well, so it could be a nice transition for him. I think you're right though, Neymar, one of the reasons I think he did take this move was for things like this. I think these international tournaments, you look at the Euros with Ronaldo, I think that had a sizable impact on his situation because it just let him be the star. And you look at the way that Neymar is set up with Brazil, it's a similar kind of, we'll do the work, you do the playing, and we'll see you in the final sort of thing.
Sam?
I really want Dybala to have a great tournament because I really enjoy watching him play, but maybe he's going to be in Messi's shadow, maybe just like Neymar was at Barcelona, and maybe he won't be able to, but I'm going to say Dybala, going to go curveball.
And none of us have gone Messi.
Messi had his Messi had his opportunity to win the World Cup with Argentina in Brazil and fluffed it. Sorry.
I just question Sampaoli sometimes, that's the problem.
And okay, let's have a look at their comments. Aaron Sharp, Neymar isn't loved in Brazil the way people elsewhere look at him. Brain Graph, what about Russia? Are they any good? Do you know anything about Russia?
Well, yeah, I mean, we spoke about them a little bit earlier. Honest answer is not. Something that's going to be a real struggle for them as well is because they're the hosts, apart from the Confed Cup, they've played no real competitive football since the Euros. And I mean, they didn't play that very competitively either. They were pretty terrible there. And so that is a major factor. Although in friendlies, yeah, okay, fine, it gives you a chance to experiment with the depth of your squad a little bit. But there's you can't make an argument sort of against playing competitive football for a cohesion of a squad. And the Confederations Cup in itself is kind of, it's a strange tournament. It's its own kind of being. So I mean, they're just. Alan Zagoev is maybe a name that kind of sticks out a bit as a talented player, but he's still one who's just like. It's almost like injuries, every year people say, "Oh yeah, he'll kick on this year. He'll be big at this tournament," and he's kind of struggled to do anything with it.
And the little bit that I've read on Zagoev was the fact that he cannot stay fit.
No, not at all. He's like, I think he looks like he's played maybe 4 games for Russia since the start of last year.
Really? Well, there you go. So yeah, there you have it. I guess final question for the panel. Got to ask it, haven't I? Where will England end up? Will they get out of the group? Will they finish 16 quarterfinals? Can they win it? Kristan?
They can win it, but I think they'll probably end up in the quarterfinals.
Ditto. I think
quarterfinals. I think
it's
almost optimistic, Sam. Well done.
I think you would take quarterfinals as long as you don't get pumped by Germany.
Okay.
I'm not even going to be controversial. I genuinely think it would be quarterfinals as well.
Right. Well, we're going to win it. All right. I'm telling you now. You heard it first. Alcott said we're going to win the World Cup. Sir Gareth, soon to be, is going to do the business.
Did you really
Harry
just
Kane's
do
going to win the Golden Boot.
I think
it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I'm telling you. Thank you so much. If you are new to the Ball Street channel, quickly let's have a look at the poll. What have you said? Who are you saying is going to win the World Cup? You're saying France are going to win the World Cup with 38%. I think that's a decent shout. Brazil 19%, Germany 27%, Spain 7%, Belgium 6%. So there you go.
Poor Belgium, mate.
So not England actually. Turns out France is going to win it. So there you have it. If you are new to Ball Street, then please hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks.
George, where can they
me.
find you on Twitter? What's your Twitter?
It's at FRFootball, George. You can find me on Twitter.
Okay.
Give me a follow.
Yeah, and George is going to be on Ball Street a lot because he's got loads of brains and stats and things. Kristan, where can they find you and read about you?
The Front 3 podcast is usually where I'm at, and then at K Heneage, which is Kheneage.
Always a good. You are probably one of my favourite Twitter people, if that's a thing. Sam, where can I find you?
Literally right here.
That's true, yeah.
most weeks.
Yeah, but United People.
United People TV as well if you need United content.
Jesus Christ. Most importantly,
where can they find you, James?
They can find Great Touch from Big Lads.
There we go. Get a plug in.
Yeah, why not? At James Alcott, give me a follow. I appreciate that. If you want some optimism in your life for England, then I'm here for you. So let us know your thoughts in the comments. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.